And we're live on the internet. That's right. Oh, yeah, but doesn't meet performance issues.
30 seconds.
Okay, cool. $30 seconds. That's right. Hi, chat room. What do you think of the name for this week's show, everybody in the chat room? Fiction Accomplished? I think that'll work. Okay. Morning. Hey, everybody. Here we go.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
Live exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
To do the bind.
So, Johnny Million's with us right now, and
Hey there, you primitive screwhead.
hi, yeah. So I actually thought before that there was some obvious option that the some sort of Syrian strike would be on the table. Cooler heads were suspecting that since the carriers left a couple of days ago, it'll take them a week to get there, that a lot of it would happen midweek next week. But apparently the news about Michael Cohen pushed up the necessitation of an immediate strike. So last night, the U.S. military, along with England and France, dropped somewhere in the order of, I think, 150 bombs on Syrian sites, 3 of them specifically, 2 air bases and 1 chemical facility. And the president tweeted this morning, "Mission accomplished," with no sense of irony or awareness whatsoever. Tossing about a phrase that is synonymous with bogged down crap wars in the middle of nowhere. So, I don't think it comes to any surprises, to anyone that these strikes in any form happened. I think there's a lot that's very telling about it. But the first thing I want to address is the whether or not Assad did it or not argument. Whether it was the rebel groups that did this because they wanted world attention on Assad, or if Assad did it to his own people, and the sort of prevailing conspiracy theories are back and forth about this. And there seems to be, and see if this, check me on my logic here, Johnny Million.
Okay.
The prevailing theory is that the United States, and by that we mean Trump, willy-nilly decided a couple weeks ago he was raging at his staff, according to reports, and saying he wants to get out of Syria. He was talking about literally having all American personnel out in 24 hours, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I think he was raging about this because of the Cohen matter and other stuff, because bringing all the troops out of Syria would be actually a big foreign policy win across a swath of voter blocks. If he managed to do that, right? If he said, yeah, I want everybody out. Now, I don't think he wants them out because of, for good reason or for a measured reason or as part of any kind of strategy. I think he knows that politically across the board, if you said, yeah, we're not involved in Syria anymore, that's nonsense. Now, there would be some blowback about obviously ceding ground to Russia. He could not be aware of that. But I think the prevailing weight of it would be, oh my gosh, he just yanked all the troops out. We're not into interventionist wars anymore. This is a good thing. Independents, some Democrats, a lot of Republicans would probably react this way, whether there was a strategy or not. And there's an argument to be made for just doing that. And I get it. It's been made before. So the president is raging at his staff. Why can't we pull these folks out, in 24 hours, 48 hours? Let's get them out of there, everybody. And you can tack on the wall because Putin wants it so. in your category of thought. And then less than a week later, there's a chemical attack. And so the storyline that's been rummaging around is that, and I don't fault people for going there, but I have a pushback on it. But I don't fault people for immediately going, that's some suspect timing. All of a sudden, Assad quote unquote is winning. Trump's talking about pulling people out. Why would he use chemical weapons on his own people and draw all this international ire? That has been the general story, right? And have you heard that kind of?
Yeah,
that's right. Okay.
Assuming that he can have that train of thought.
You mean Assad?
Yes.
Yeah. No. Assad wakes up every morning and ties his own tie. He's not a fool. He's dangerous. And there's all sorts of reasons. I mean, this is a super complicated space. There are no soft answers in Syria. That's the reality of the circumstance. So, it's, you're trading monsters for monsters. We've done that with rulers in the Middle East and are mucking around in those countries before. And Syria is the logical extension of that kind of interventionist foreign policy, is that which monster is your favorite of the week in some ways. So, but the idea is that he's winning. Trump's going to pull out. Why would he use chemical weapons on his people? Okay, well, if you'll recall, quote unquote, the last time he used chemical weapons, we bombed a half-empty airbase. And we gave the Russians 2 days' notice. They moved all their stuff out of the way. We didn't bomb the runway. We just bombed some hangars with some unused planes in it, essentially. And the runway itself and the services done in that place were done in 24 hours. So it was a minor price to pay. Literally, in your return on investment and your cost, relationship estimations, like how you break down whether or not there's another phrase like ROI that I'm trying to think of right now, but I can't. But the idea is that by doing this, like, it was actually ultimately worth it. That, if it only cost him half of an empty hangar or two to be able to gas some people and clear out an area, it's no skin off his nose. You know what I mean? In a battle where he's, having, rebel fighters shoot down airplanes and that kind of stuff back and forth. It's been going on for a long time, right? It's not illogical to assume that, this is the price. We'll lose 2 planes. Guys, if you're looking at like a Winston Churchill-like map and you're pushing little plastic planes towards little plastic tanks and little plastic people, you're going to go, okay, we'll lose those 2 if we do this, and we'll lose that. That's done. That is an understood in any war theater. So it's not surprising that he would try again. And again, I also put on the shelf that people believe that one was fake as well, but we'll own that for a moment in the conversation just so we can make the point. The big question seems to be, like, if Trump's leaving, why would he use these gas attacks on his own people? And there's 2 logical answers. I'm not insisting they are right. I'm just saying that when you make this argument, you leave open this huge gap, and it's willfully ignorant to not to express it. One is that in the case of, he's already winning, why would he do this, and whether it would draw international attention. Well, according to Nikki Haley yesterday, he's used gas attacks 50 times. Right. We've only struck him over 2 of them. And when she made that statement, effectively, the first time, we had only struck him over 1. So 1 out of 50 times that he has used chemical weapons on his own people, we have struck. Okay, so let's just say that, again, you're looking at a big board, you're pushing little plastic tanks and plastic airplanes and plastic people around, and you're making decisions about what you're going to do and when and how and what the cost will be. That's not a huge cost. 3 empty, hangars and no runway damage in exchange for doing this. Okay, so let's be abundantly clear. The U.S. and the international community has only struck back against him once. You can argue that Israel did it the other time. That Israel struck, but they struck a chemical weapons facility, the same one, by the way, we hit last night. So we basically just made a hole that was already there bigger. they struck that place before, but not in retaliation for chemical attacks, for missiles flying towards Israel. For it, it was basically a retaliatory attack. So they took some of his chemical weapons stuff, but not in direct retaliation for this. So the primary one is 1 out of 50. Okay, 1 out of 50 times we have struck Syria on the use of chemical weapons. So, and that time, and arguably this time, nothing was destroyed. Right? Nothing meaningful. And those sites that were hit were given at least a week warning. Right?
Russia.
So this is, I'm just saying this is the argument, that you're making, as far as why would he go ahead and do it? The other reason is the same reason why chemical weapons and biological weapons are outlawed internationally, and why we have a problem with them versus other weapons. There is a very specific reason why chemical and biological agents are treated differently than tactical weapons. And we got to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to explain that and show why there is a dangerous precedent if you allow biological or chemical weapons to be used in
Talk
those.
About a dangerous precedent.
Well, and you kind of, gave up the ghost on that one. That's exactly where we're headed. So we'll be right back after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk on HalSparks.tv if you want to stream the show and join in the chat there. And I want to thank Hal Vickery and Carter360 for your super chats right out of the gate. Bless you guys so much. We have a lot of news today. I feel like Rachel Maddow saying that, but it's true.
Right. Yeah.
We got a lot to get to. We'll be right back after this. Folding paper.
Crumple.
Crumble. Yeah. So, I'm sorry I missed the troll right out of the box, guys. What did we get? What? Yes, thank you, Carl, for cost-benefit analysis. Jeez. I like to think that the air base we bombed is half full. You're such an optimist. So what? Yeah, we had a Russian troll. Everything looks and sounds great. I know but Lady B and I were on the air a half hour before the show today to make everything work, and that's saying a lot. To be like Rachel, you have to start with a cryptic lead-in story. We start tonight with a story about, those little tabs you see on paper. Those were invented by. She's basically doing connections to for her first her A segment every week. Trump doesn't care about Syrian babies. He's posturing for Comey's book release. Entirely, I bet people stop you on the street, Hal. That tall lesbian. A Chad, right? That cold I was fighting off last week? I still have it. Well, consume more water and don't stress, Carrie. Okay, this is going to take you on a journey, but stick with me. Brad, you're so excited about Connections. You added a K to my name, but I completely I love Connections, and Connections 2 was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, she's essentially doing that at the beginning. I really do. Hey, Immortal Blood, what's happening? Rachel's most common lament these days is, well, there goes our A block again. Yeah, well, there goes her whole show, which I don't necessarily buy anymore. I just think it's adorable. I think it's her attempt to be personable.
30 seconds.
Okay. What was our troll saying in the chat room? I missed that part. Good, Carrie. Glad to hear it.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So, when in discussing what is going on in Syria, I think it helps to have the full conversation about these things. And there's this huge gap in people's reaction to this thing, and one of them is the idea that why would Assad use chemical weapons on his own people? Okay, this this comes up a bunch. Why would, if the international community is going to come down on you, and we've already kind of addressed that with the 1 in 50 statistic that we're operating on right now. Why chemical and biological weapons, and why do we have a particular prohibition against those things, and not say using MOABs or bombs or sending in troops because people are just as dead or just as wounded is the argument. And there's a very specific reason why countries decided at a certain point that chemical and biological weapons are particularly problematic. And the reason is there is no secondary price on an invasion if you can just gas the people. See, there's a price to be paid when you're at war with another country if you want their stuff. That you also, in the process of taking their stuff, have to blow up their stuff. So you destroy infrastructure, you destroy buildings, you destroy waterways, and if an invading country decides it wants to take another country, in the process of doing it, what they're getting is a bunch of blank land. It's going to cost them money to settle their people, build stuff, and create a new element to their country. Chemical and biological weapons give you the ability to kill the humans and keep all the stuff. And so that's why they are particularly problematic. They ease the ability for an invading force to take a neighboring country. And it is Germany to Poland is the big fear where that started to really roll forward. And then of course it's arguably the German and Russian conflict between each other that made everybody really nervous about the idea that you could, if you want right now, let's say you want to attack Los Angeles and you were going to nuke/bomb Los Angeles, whatever it is. If you move in, if you nuke it, you have to wait 10,000 years before you can build anything, arguably. But if you Moab it or you just reduce it to rubble, you have to build all the buildings again and build all the roads again before your people or your settlers or your whatever can take over that idea, right? And so the chemical and biological weapons, the big fear about them is it makes invading and taking over another country far too easy. And so externally, nobody, there's been a very distinct line that the international community and even countries that are on, that have them get really nervous about using them over a border for that very reason. Because the international community knows we're one step away, if that's a slippery slope to being able to use it. Inside your own country, there is a huge precedent, especially in Middle Eastern countries, for clearing out rebel groups and Shia versus Sunni kind of conflicts, of clearing out the humans in an area and keeping the area intact. And Assad wanting to retain control of Syria, it makes tremendous sense that if he thought the United States was leaving, that Russia had his back, that nobody's for regime change, that he would want to stop blowing up stuff and just start killing the rebels. There's a logic to it, okay? So that being said, understand, I'm not even arguing that that's what's happening. I'm saying when people go, why would he even? Because that's why he would even. That's why all of them do it. And so by pretending that isn't an option, we leave a huge gap in the argument.
Yeah, I do tend to forget that stuff because it just seems like inexplicably cruel and like I'm just doing this to do this because it's horrible and it's the worst thing I could do.
No, because
but
this is a
it's
place
a means to an end.
Yeah, this saves him billions of dollars.
I don't have to rebuild anything.
That's right.
I just have to get rid of the pesky biological matter in the way.
That is exactly right. It is extermination at its base root. It is sending in a pest company essentially to get rid of human insects in that regard. And it is horrible, but it's something you have to be aware of, and that's why it's so important.
No, I don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, you got me there. That's the Fox argument, I suppose. Yeah. Well, that shut it down.
You got me there.
I had this whole logic thing.
Good night, everybody.
Right. So, okay. And Driftglass in our chat is saying this is the reasoning behind the neutron bomb, and it is.
Right.
It's essentially like the idea is that
that's what I thought of when you started that. The whole neutron bomb was the one that got rid of the people.
That's
I remember
right.
Learning about that when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they are specifically why everybody freaks out about them, but sort of shrugs off conventional warfare in regard to that. And so I want people to just understand that when they're having the conversation. You know what I mean? Like, because there's this idea that because we're reacting to the chemical weapons in a way that, like, well, what about all the people who've been shot and blown up? It doesn't mean we're forgetting about those people by any means. It just means there's a level of frightening to chemical and biological agents that are specific to a particular type of dictator that's why there's so much pushback. Internally in these countries, it is not surprising that Rumsfeld sold Iraq the chemical weapons that they used on the Iranians during the Iran-Iraq war. And part of it, later on, they kept their stockpiles and gassed some of the people at their own border because those people weren't on board for their particular religious sect. It's more functional as an internal weapon because, again, you're not blowing. Why would you want to blow up your own stuff? It's why you don't want to. You want these guys to not have an inch of ground. This is why the British and the French are involved. Now, why we're involved is because the British and French were going to do this anyways. Like I said, Israel has already hit one of these sites, if not the other sites we just didn't hear about. But we've definitely heard about them hitting this chemical site before, right? For lack of a better phrase, we'll call it the aspirin factory, for obvious references. But if you look at our place in this, we were basically playing catch up to the fact that the Iranians or that the British and the French were basically, they had drawn this line. They have forces in the area. They have a lot to lose if biological and chemical weapons are allowed to grow. You can, and again, you have to sort of, there's almost this suspension of disbelief you have to operate in if you're talking about this from a tactical standpoint. You have to put the old, maybe this whole thing is fake aside for a second just to have the conversation. Then you can bring that back in and go, okay, what are the other geopolitical implications of why they would do this? It's important to, otherwise you just appear ignorant, is my point. So the British and the French were already going to do this. They were already going to do it Friday night. They had already made their decision. Really? Yeah, they were going to, we coordinated, we played catch up with them. Essentially, Trump is covering for what is probably, and this keeps being harder to say, like each week, but
You're about to shoot for a hyperbole, aren't you?
Well, no, it's just the biggest piece of news in the Russia investigation that has come up.
I'm sorry, which one?
Right, exactly. Michael Cohen actually went to Prague.
See, I'm just hearing about that this morning. Talk to me about
Michael
Cohen in Prague.
So the Washington Post is reporting, McClatchy, and they're reporting what McClatchy's reporting, but McClatchy reported on Friday evening that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team has evidence of a trip by President Trump's personal lawyer to Prague in the late summer of 2016. Overseas travel to non-Russian countries might strike some observers as incremental, if not unimportant, development in Mueller's probe. That is not the case. Confirmation that Cohen visited Prague could be quite significant. A trip to Prague by Cohen was included in the dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier. Those reports, paid for by an attorney working for Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democratic National Committee, and by the way, the Washington Post doesn't say this, a right-wing newspaper and never Trumpers before they realized he was going to win, and they fell in behind him like Alex Jones suck-ups. Cohen's visiting Prague, though, is concrete. Over the course of 3 of the dossier 17 reports, the claim is outlined, but we've hastened to note that these allegations have not been confirmed by the Washington Post. They mean the other stuff that hasn't been. But he lied about this specifically. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to deal with this, because this means this collapses their entire argument from the inside. And not to mention,
Lady B!
They claimed...
Sorry,
they
that was
claimed...
supposed to be off mic. Lady B!
Right, they claimed...
Can you hear me? Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. They claimed... apparently the FBI has got all of Michael Cohen's recorded conversations that he kept, which apparently will make the Nixon tapes look like a 1960s cartoon on like the talking version of a Schoolhouse Rock episode. We'll be back right after.
Looking forward to some higher fidelity.
Oh, indeed.
Well, Lady B's not in the room, so I need you to just... Oh, wait, here she comes.
That's all right.
Yeah. Oh, she's got chocolate cake all over her face.
What?
What were you doing?
Happy birthday to you. All right, we'll be back right after this. That's what Lady B does when she walks in the room. Just kicks in some GNR. That's right, just slams right over top. That's right. Now, Cohen is like a dumb Tom. Yeah, he is. Well, he's not the one to talk sense. Tom Hagen in The Godfather was like, okay, settle down, guys. Is this smart? That he was great that way. I didn't know Alex Jones stopped by a bit. Did you guys? I retweeted it. Did you guys see the flip out that he did? If not, go to my Twitter feed and watch that really quick. It's pretty hysterical. I'm kidding. It's not Lady B's birthday. She's just eating cake. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Carl. Tom Hagen tended to be risk averse. That is not the prevailing concept. As far as what Trump likes in his legal team. As a matter of fact, he fires the people who are risk averse, or they walk. Dowd being the main one, right? Arguably, Dowd would be the Tom Hagen, and he walked rather than eat it, right? Bad Hal. It wasn't fake news. I was joking. She just walked in. No. She just walked in eating. Johnny just said she walked in with chocolate cake all over her face. And I'm just making a cake joke. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, this is ridiculous. She really did have chocolate cake on her face. That's hysterical. Johnny just sent me a picture of Lady B with chocolate on her face. She was just eating cake. That's so funny. Did she just get married? What happened?
I was just hungry.
Okay. It just looked like you and your like husband and wife smashing cake into each other's face. I'm just saying, next time, bring it into the studio. Eat it with a fork. It's okay. You don't have to rush. We're totally good. Johnny's on a diet. He won't have any. It's fine. Oh, somebody snuck in behind me. Somebody snuck. Yeah. All right. Hi, my love. Hi.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So
Fake news, huh?
yeah, fake news. It is not Lady B's birthday.
Should I tweet that out?
The picture? No. Poor Lady B. She's
No,
allowed
she
to...
did that on purpose.
Oh, I see. Okay, good. All right, well then
She
fine.
went out of her way. She's like, you know what? I'm going to go put cake on my face, and you take a picture of me.
Oh, okay, well then good. That's hilarious. Then please do. Yeah. And while we were dealing with that, of course, my son snuck in and gave me a hug, a stealth hug while we were doing the show. So, coming soon to a tweet near you from @JMillion, picture of Lady B with cake on her face. Do you remember when Michael Cohen tweeted that picture of the front of his passport, saying I've never been to Prague in my life, #fake news? That was okay. Yeah. So to prove that he had never been to Prague in his life, he tweeted a picture of the front of his passport. Which, and by the way, for the record, actually, I have to admit, I don't even know that it's his passport, because your passport doesn't have your name on the front of it. It does. They don't stamp the front of it. They don't put stickers on the front of it that say what country you went to. That's next level, like iPad passport, iris detection kind of stuff for 20 years from now. But he tweeted this out after BuzzFeed had released the dossier, and to push back on this, he said, "No, I've never been to Prague in my life." #fake news. And again, he didn't show all the pages inside. But ultimately, if you travel between European countries, they don't stamp your passport. There's no proof in that. There never was.
It's the EU.
Yeah, the EU. You don't have to get a stamp on your passport going from Germany to France. It's silly. So, okay. So, what McClatchy alleges is that its sources say Cohen entered the Czech Republic through Germany. A Czech publication reported shortly after the allegation was made that the government intelligence officials in that country had no record of Cohen's visiting. Well, there's no reason why they would. But again, this is the old, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, idea. One source said that if there's such a meeting, he didn't arrive in the Czech Republic by plane. McClatchy's report doesn't contradict that because you can drive and you can take a train. The day after Cohen's, and which you would do, by the way, if you were trying to hide it. That's the funny thing, is the more, and Julie in our chat saying, I have 2 passports. Exactly. Because we have spies in our group.
Hang on a second.
No, but I have, I technically have, I had an overlapping one for a year because I got mine I got a new one. And they don't make you turn in the old one.
You got it redid?
Yeah, I had to go get, I re-upped it. And I couldn't find it, so I had it for a year, and then I found it, and it was still good for another year. Okay. So anyways, the day after Cohen's tweet, Trump held a news conference. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump organization.
God.
Was in Prague. Turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace. What took place? It's a disgrace. This is one of his favorite phrases. It's a disgrace that took place. It's a disgrace, and I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen.
Wow.
They ought
okay,
to.
Cool.
I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen. I think what he means.
It's just.
Yeah.
Like his It's like reading any transcript to any speech that he does off the cuff.
Yeah.
It's just a run-on sentence of somebody who
Right.
can't focus on something for more than 8 seconds.
It's like they handed an actually, a regular speech from him to Christopher Walken, and he just erased all the punctuation like he does when he does a script. You know
That's
that?
exactly it.
It just
yeah.
takes out all the punctuation so you don't know where the sentences go together. So everything goes together, So
Do you remember when they had one of the big anniversaries on Saturday Night Live, and they were taking questions from the audience, and Christopher Walken stood up from the audience and said, "Wait, you're saying you rehearse? I just sort of free-form associate when I'm here."
Right. Which is, by the way, which is a complete and total lie because he's a crazy, rehearser like nuts. Anyways, so the part about the different Michael Cohen, by the way, turns out not to be true, right? And thank you, Natalie, for the super chat. You don't say. 'Cause she says because Camden, my son, who snuck in during the feed to say hi. Unlike other people, though, I don't have like weird housekeeper race in behind me and chase them out of the room.
Awesome.
That was so brutal. Although my mom will sometimes come in and get it. Yeah. So Cohen.
They did. Did you see when that meme finally came to rest? Like they had a huge interview, and that was his wife.
Oh wow, yeah. Was she just scooping him up? Okay,
that was very sweet.
Yeah,
just like no.
So Cohen showed his passport to BuzzFeed. The only travel into the proper area indicated by passport stamps was a trip to and from Italy, July 9th to 17th. But note that this is too early for Steele's time frame, and for the assertion that would that it was in response to the firing of Manafort, because they're under the idea that once Manafort was fired, Cohen came in and took over that part of it, all the back channel stuff, all the Russian finagling, and it gets really heavy because the big concern between about his efforts was that he was involving himself with Russian hackers. So this is the suggestion is that Cohen took over management of the relationship with Russia after campaign chairman Paul Manafort was fired from the campaign in August because of questions with his relationship with the political party in Ukraine. Cohen is said to have met secretly with people in Prague, possibly at the Russian Center for Science and Culture in Prague. In the last week of August or the 1st of September, he allegedly met with representatives of the Russian government, including officials of the Presidential Administration Legal Department, Oleg Solodulkin, who works for the Russian Center for Science and Culture, or Konstantin Kosachev, head of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Upper House of Parliament, and a guy who unfortunately has a middle name that starts with a K. A planned meeting... a planned meeting in Moscow, the dossier alleges, was considered too risky given that the topic of conversation was to divert attention from Manafort's link to Russia and a trip to Moscow by Carter Page in July. Another topic of conversation, according to the dossier, allegedly paying off Romanian hackers who had targeted the Clinton campaign. And again, the McClatchy story in them is saying that's a lot to talk about, and it's meaningless if he didn't go to Prague, which is why he tweets the picture, says he never been to Prague in his life, and why Trump comes out the very next day and makes a central point of his argument pushback. Michael Cohen, never been to Prague. He would never even go there. He thinks it's the Chinese word for plague. He would never go. He's staying away from there. It's unsafe. He wouldn't go. Why would he? Hookers and pee-pee, not happening, not true. And so they make this a central part of their pushback. Well, turns out Mueller has evidence that he was actually there.
Oopsies.
Yeah. So this is the, here it is. Look at it another way. If the central conceit of Steele's claim were accurate, that Cohen was working with agents of the Russian government directly to aid Trump's candidacy, it'd be very hard to argue that no collusion took place. That likely requires having Cohen been in Prague. This is the first significant indication that he might have been. That this is, if they can place Cohen in Prague, all of the no collusion, they've never found any evidence of collusion. Folks, this is evidence of collusion. That's what this means. flat out Cohen taking over for Manafort, going to Prague, sneaking into the country from Germany. If they have evidence that he, like they apparently they do, that Cohen was there, that'll be the last time we're going to move into the what's the problem with collusion anyway argument that we heard. Remember fallback plan B? Besides, there's no law against collusion. Colluding's a lot of fun. It involves, taking your shoes off, tickling each other's toes under the table. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with a little bit of colluding. Colluding. They all go well together. Thank you. You're laughing like Goldmember. Don't play the laughing boy with me, Goldmember. This is
Goldmember.
So this is a huge step forward, and if in fact Mueller has this evidence, there's argument that it's game over. And if they can get him to admit it because of the other stuff they have on him, which is just going to be absurd. If they got, we'll talk about the raid when we come back, because if there's a through line to the attacks in Syria, I think they started with the raid even more so than the maybe the Friday conversation that Trump had with Cohen after the raid, which is a big problem. Especially they now have, and I don't know what phone they called each other on, because you're going to tell me that they got access to his phones and his all of his devices, but Cohen was able to make a phone call to the president and have it not be tapped somehow? Where was he calling from? A payphone in Jersey? Like it's Goodfellas?
He did already tweet this morning that all of this is fake news.
Trump
Michael
did?
Cohen
Or
did.
Cohen did?
No, Cohen
yeah,
did.
yeah. He's got to push back.
People think that he's tweeting from the public library.
Yeah. You know what's not fake news? 10 to 35 years in a federal penitentiary. That's what's not. Because there's a lot there. Oh, and thanks, Billy, for the chat, the super chat. I appreciate that. For the Hal Sparks Comey Trump Knife Fight Fund. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio Program, Mega Worldwide. Now with 100% more. Johnny Million. Follow us at Hal Sparks and at JMillion on Twitter. This is kind of like this is a level of like an exponentially wow. Trump orders strikes on Syria in retaliation. Russia condemns treacherous and insane U.S. retaliation strikes. Get Russia. These women who could bring an end to him. Trump bombs Syria hours after 88 lawmakers urged him to fire first consult Congress rate. The U.S.'s useless strikes is the headline on HuffPo right now. How do you want to bunt with Enter Sandman? Collude. When you and your bevy of hookers take lewds before the being begins, right? Do you remember Lab Rats? Of course I remember Lab Rats. I haven't been hit in the head with something, of course. They said in court between 16,000 and millions of documents spanning 30 years. Yeah, it's absurd the amount of stuff they have. Regarding voting them out, Norman Goldman had a great fantasy scenario to install Hillary as president if we win the House. That won't happen. Because it's Trump, Pence, Orrin Hatch. This is the best you can hope for is President Orrin Hatch. Sorry, until there's an election, which is fine. I mean, it's not fine, but I prefer us choosing by direct elections, even, and if we want to solve the electoral college problem, let's solve it legitimately. Instead of just doing a legal end run around it. Like I think the fact that that Trump has and Ryan stepping down. So Christ, if it was McCarthy, can you imagine? I think Orrin Hatch is third technically, because I think the speaker still has to preside over the House. Yeah, it's Senate then House, isn't it? I mean, it's a cluster after that, anyways. If Trump and Pence get impeached, then Kevin McCarthy as Speaker will literally be invaded by the body snatchers. Yeah. That's great, Amos. Orrin Hatch. Is Facebook a real book, Mr. Zuckerbaum? Speaker is next. House and Senate. Oh, is it? Yeah, you're right. My bad. I always get them mixed up because it's never happened.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Now with 100% more cake.
Yay.
Yay, cake. The headlines that are kind of coming out of this is that this looks like, to me, and if you follow my tweets about this and stuff, is I'm never surprised by what people will do for money. Okay, let's understand that we're finding out that Michael Cohen brokered a $1.2 million settlement. How big was the settlement for this playmate that he got pregnant and had got to have an abortion? This big donor to the right wing donor. Michael Cohen orchestrated all that. The $1.2 million was a direct payout, but apparently this guy had been sort of sugar daddy to this woman for 2 years. And which is not surprising because that's the only way this makes any sense. If forgive me if you look at the guy, like, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing about it like, wow, he's he's not particularly attractive, but there's something really charming about the guy. Like neither of that is true. Like none of that is true. But you can go, yeah, he could basically buy you a condo. All right, well, okay, now I'm starting to see where it starts to make sense. But Cohen brokered this whole thing. That came out, and it's not surprising, I guess, that this guy was doing favors for other people as well. And so yesterday, if you'll notice, I tweeted to Trump. I was like, Mueller's team, because the Southern District of New York has them, has all of your NDAs, all of them now. By the way, we find out in that other thing that Michael Cohen used the same David Dennison name that he used for Trump for this other guy. So this was a standard name. So Double D and PP were not specific to Trump. They were specific, that this was Michael Cohen. Basically, that he had a boilerplate NDA that he handed out. This is why paternity stuff. You could make the argument that Trump and Stormy Daniels literally were just signing a slapdash version of the one he did for the other guy, where there was paternity involved, where there was an abortion that came about. And thank you for reminding us all, Carl, in the chat room. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. It helps us out. HalSparks.tv, of course, is your easy link to get there, but it helps us out immensely. We're obviously, as a progressive show, we're always ice skating uphill against, Sinclair Broadcasting and Clear Channel, buying up everything. So that being said, Michael Cohen's they part of the raid, they found that there are 0 emails between him and Trump, and that he didn't, quote unquote, seem to be doing a lot of lawyering. He didn't do a lot of legal work for Trump, which I agree with. He probably just scared people, and he seemed to be too lazy to write up an individual NDA for each person. Lazy, or he's only going to do work he's paid for, and Trump was stiffing him for some of this stuff because he had to be loyal to do all this stuff, I guess. And notice that after Trump pardoned Scooter Libby, Michael Cohen is seen outside of his hotel with a bunch of guys smoking cigars and not showing up for court. Like, the timing of that is stunning. By the way, I'm pretty sure Trump can't pardon anybody that he's legally that's obstruction of justice if he's legally tied to this guy in a criminal case. So we'll see, though. This is about them testing the limits of our of our judiciary and our legal system. This is he's one of the most ridiculous lawyers that's ever existed, but ultimately he was just kind of a strong arm for Trump. And this idea that he didn't email with Trump, that there's no emails of him back and forth that would sort of secure attorney-client privilege, is very telling as well. Because on the one hand, it makes things tougher for Trump, because arguing that he has attorney-client privilege is difficult when you don't have any emails back and forth as my attorney. As your attorney, I suggest going back and forth. But we know from all these reports about Trump.
That sounds like bad exposition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As
your attorney,
like
Stan,
you're trying to do some sort of screenwriting.
That's right. Yeah, it's one of those. Bill, you're my brother, and words like
Look,
that.
As your brother, I can't stand here and let you do this.
Steve Martin's bad writing, pet peeves. So there is a very, there's a good reason for why. Again, it's. People, I hate it when people argue, like, why would anybody? There's always a why. You know what I mean? Like, it's like saying, what kind of crazy people would vote? Like, there's 7 billion people on Earth. There's 100,000 of almost every type of human in the world, and all of them can start trolling at once. So don't get too carried away if you get jumped on for talking on Twitter, is my point. But in the case of, of Trump and Cohen, we hear all these stories about how Trump doesn't do email because of the paper trail. He doesn't trust it. He never has. All of his stuff is largely, especially the sketchier stuff, is done on the phone or on actual paper with instructions to destroy after the fact.
With instructions to
destroy. Yeah, with instructions to destroy it after the fact. This is a this is a constant thing that Trump's been doing. Like, he's known how to deal with hiding what he's doing from the New York regulators and that crowd since, they got correspondence between him and I guess his dad and whoever else was working at his management at his building not to rent to black people back, in the early 70s.
Like you do.
Yeah, as you do. And so they got caught. And they got caught because of the conversations in between. So you better believe that as soon as email showed up, he was super suspicious about it. And there's been conversations about that he just doesn't do it. And yeah, Carl on our chat saying, he's trying to tell me that Trump doesn't know what SMTP and POP and IMAP are? Oh, come on. Yeah. I think he's willfully ignorant about it because he doesn't want to know. They're no good. And if you look at what he's accused Hillary Clinton of doing as far as hiding her 30,000 emails that I was smart enough never to write. We put them on rice paper and they dissolve in water. I eat them. I hold it up in front of you. You read it. No one says it out loud, and then I eat it.
I write them in lemon juice.
That's right.
You have to hold it lighter under the paper.
That's right. I learned it in preschool. I read it in highlights for children. I read it every time I go to the dentist, which is every 6 months to get new veneers. Which is true and crazy, apparently. So, yeah, apparently he gets his veneers redone. Like he was getting them redone every 6 months. Not cleaned,
Money
just
well spent.
Take them off and put them back on, like new ones, because he's that rich. Because brushing your teeth is a pain? I don't understand. There's something else. I don't know what's going on there. But, yeah, that was the story. So, this is, and by the way, Paul Ryan announced his retirement this week. Because
remember that? That feels like a month ago.
Exactly. So this is, this is one of those weekends where we don't have enough show for the amount of stuff that's going on. And which is sort of lucky for us, since we can't actually, I guess, take callers right now because of the phone lines are being a little wonky on us. But that's okay because we have a lot to deal with today. And we, of course, have the chat room. So if you want to talk to us that way, it's a great way. You can either join us in the chat room at howsparks.tv, which is will take you to the YouTube channel, or you can tweet me at howsparks or at jmillion as well using the hashtag HSRPM, and we will address your concerns, comments, ideas, thoughts that way. And we'll be back right after this. This is the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Don't forget to lock that bookmark it. That's right. We'll be back right after this. Of course I can see it.
Peeking. I didn't know that camera was pointing at the door to see if I was coming in.
Of course it is.
You were trying to sneak and
You were trying to sneak.
No,
You were trying.
You caught
I
me.
did. I caught you being sneaky. It's true.
You caught me being sneaky.
Do you want to do a new liner for me? Do you want to go here? Go.
Yep.
You're listening to
You're listening to
the House Sparks
the House Box
radio program.
Program
Mega Worldwide.
Mega Worldwide.
That's right. See, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, baby.
Okay, out. Shut the door. One more hour. They're missing your dancing. Hold on. You go farther away, a little further away, and they can see you. Dance, dance, dance to the music. Dance, dance, dance. Oh, you got. Yeah, I got it. I have to cut that on there. That's so amazing. Program, the Camden Wiggle. Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, he's in rare form. Camden is, as they say, a ham. Carrie, do you know where the phrase "a ham" comes from? Like father, like son. Thank you, Ginger. Yeah. Ham comes from the fact that minstrels, used to clean their makeup off with ham fat, and so these guys smelled like ham fat, and so they were originally called ham fat men. Like, oh, he's a ham fat man, and no, don't worry about it. It's a phrase. Nobody's offended by it. It's just true, and that later boiled down to ham. That's right. Give me ham on 5, hold the mail. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, they used to use ham fat to take their makeup off. There you go. Pre-Noxzema. Hey, it's my... I'm a comedy historian. Mm-hmm. That's right, John. I always knew that minstrel shows were disgusting. It does help to have been born after 1935 for all of us, I think. I'm eating a ham sandwich, in fact. Well, you're getting your sweet revenge, then, I suppose, Carrie. Yeah, Camden discovered Michael Jackson videos in the last little bit. I showed him Thriller and some stuff, and so, yeah. The bee's knees is from an Olympic runner. That's interesting. That's 45s on the Camden label. They gave me menstrual pains. Get out of here with you. Get out of here. Menstrual pain. Oh, boy. So. You know. I'm trying to look up that Michael Cohen tweet. In that regard, but OP. Drift glass. I just got your tweet. Thanks. Thanks, Ginger. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's interesting how many common sayings come from nautical terms, for example. 3 sheets to the wind. Yeah. Yeah, that's off keel, or off kilter, is the idea. as we adults should encourage that because society ripping away the immature too much. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, we got a nice showing in the nice crowd happening right now in the as far as people watching. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. For those of you that don't get here that often or that aren't active in our chat room, we're on every Saturday from 9 to 11 Pacific, 11 to 1 Central, noon to 2 Eastern, 4 a.m. to whatever Tibetan time. I don't know. At that point, you're on your own. But we obviously deal with the
10 seconds.
the progressive news of the week. And there's Lady B eating chocolate cake.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn fuss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So, Elliott Broidy, who's the really problematic RNC finance chair, it turns out that
Yeah, what's going on with that? I am really having a hard time keeping up. So he.
Yeah, this
what
is
does
you
he
know.
do to
Do you know what
women?
a Gish Gallop is? By any chance? It's a debate.
Gallop?
A Gish Gallop. It's a debate term. It's where you lay out a barrage of lies on purpose. You just like bulldoze in your time of talking, or you respond to somebody. And what you do is, instead of rebutting one particular point that the person has or laying out a point of your own, what you do is you do 10 lies in a row, at least. You just you blatantly lie 10
You
times.
sound like every troll caller.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You just it's a common form of debate. And what happens is, usually in your response to it, if any thinking person wants to deal with each lie in and of themselves. So what happens is you usually argue the last one or the first one, whichever one caught your biggest fixation, right? In the 10 lies, 1 or 10 or maybe number 6 end up being the one that you kind of go, wait a second. Now, I'm going to push back on a lot of things, but let's just say that yada yada, that the Affordable Care Act is not a you know what I mean? You pick one thing and they've just lied blatantly about a bunch of stuff. And it's because people are socialized not to just call someone a liar. And so, which is the, you know, in the debate going, well, let's just deal with the fact that you just lied 10 times. And you can pick which one I will step all over. That's the actual response. Is, you know, it's one of the best ways to deal with a Gish Gallop, but almost nobody does it because it's considered rude and bad form and whatever. Well, the same thing is sort of true of bad news from the Trump administration. What he's learned to do is that if the news is bad, then just keep pouring out more bad news. Just like, you know, just give them more stuff to worry about, because people do have, it's, you know, there's an argument that people have your willpower can get taxed at a certain point. That a lot of good people do the occasional bad thing, usually something immoral like involving drinking too much, eating poorly, having sex with the wrong person, or doing any number of those things together, because they have too stringent, you know, their use of willpower in their regular daily life is too much. This would be the priest argument. You know, for like they use too much willpower all the time, so they literally like snap it like a tendon and become monsters, because at a certain point, humans can't take so much. Well, worry is very much the same way. That after a certain point, if people have a lot to worry about, they'll stop worrying about anything. You know, they'll give up on worry entirely. You know, they'll just go, screw it. What's the point? Which is who I would like to call most independent voters or the both-siderism crowd. You know, it's all a mess. Can't trust. Vote the bums out. You know what the problem is? All the people who are in office. but you like Elizabeth Warren, like, yeah, but she could stay, and you're okay with Bernie Sanders, yeah, and Al Franken, well, he should have been allowed to stay in, but you know what I mean? Once you start drilling down, that falls apart. But in the abstract, they go, I don't know. It's all a mess. They get overwhelmed. Well, the Trump administration seems to take advantage of that with a fair regularity, and they benefit from it because they are so corrupt. And I think we'd only be overwhelmed. We're only overwhelmed because the guy's in the White House. If this was happening outside the White House, that Trump just got busted, let's say he was former presidential candidate or just Donald Trump real estate guy, star of The Apprentice. If all this stuff started coming to roost, right, about his, financial dealings and his fixing and his, multiple NDAs with porn stars and how it might undermine his prenup with his current wife, might even mess with the ones he's had with his past wives if stuff comes out, because they could go back and sue him for money they should have gotten. Wait for that to happen. That if this was happening just in the news, we wouldn't be overwhelmed by it emotionally. We'd just go, oh man, the hits just keep coming. This guy's a dirtbag. Look at this stuff. It'd be like an OJ trial that none of us really had a horse in the race on. You just kind of watch it for, it would fascinate. It'd be like Making a Murderer on Netflix or something. It would get you all riled up, but it'd be done at arm's length, right? Well, in the case of like Trump, the guy's in the White House, so everything that happens affects us, affects everybody. Yeah. Oh, by the way, just breaking, Russia now says that they are considering arming Syria with S-300 missile systems to help shoot down planes and incoming missiles. Next time Trump decides to distract from one of his scandals, the U.S. military will be in harm's way. By the way, I still think a lot of this is rhetoric. I think Trump and Russia do have a back channel. There is no reason to believe that they don't, considering we have never struck Russian military ordnance during any of these hits. They've gotten plenty of...
Why does he say Russia get ready when we're talking about striking Syria? Like, he really can't keep these cards close to his vest.
Because I think that's part... No, I think it's part of a PR campaign. I think it's meant to make him look tough on Russia. I don't buy it for a second.
Okay.
It is...
I thought it was more like...
It strains...
No,
it strains credulity.
Move everything.
No. Yeah, exactly. Like, get ready, Russia. Move your tanks out of the way. We're coming. Like you told me I could.
Right hand.
I've got
to come up and over. I'm shooting for your temple.
That's right. We're gonna, and again, him saying, them saying it was overwhelming, it was precise. He's saying it was a perfectly executed strike. It was mission accomplished. Which, by the way, you can't know it's mission accomplished. If the mission is to degrade his chemical weapons capabilities and make sure he doesn't do it again, there is no mission accomplished in that. And again, it's one of the things, like, the idea is that we are in Syria for the foreseeable future because we must ensure that Bashar al-Assad will not use chemical weapons on his people anymore. Well, that is an unknowable, in many ways, to borrow a sliver of Rumsfeld, that is an unknowable proposition. You can't know that now this guy no longer has this. You know what I mean? There is no point in this where you go, yeah, definitely there's no chemical weapons. Oh, thank you, in our chat for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, he's giving to the 666 fund to help buy 666 Fifth Avenue, which magically Jared has managed to find backers, apparently. A handshake deal, apparently, that he will be able to get the $1.2 billion to temporarily hold on to it until the debt comes due in a year. That's interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, insofar as the Trump world goes, though, let's be abundantly clear. The Trump methodology seems right now to be a form of sort of bad news Gish Gallop. That before you have time to even process one piece of bad news, here's three more pieces of bad news. So that literally people give up and turn the news off. I know tons of people are taking news breaks and all that kind of stuff, which is not necessarily a bad thing in the abstract, but they're, and many of them, their reason they're doing this is because they've already made up their minds. They don't need to be convinced. of this, and they're going to vote the way they're going to vote this fall, and they know what their mission is. And so to a certain point, other than considering yourself warned, about some sort of incoming disaster, the news becomes superfluous, unnecessary, because the case is made. And this is, we just found out this week that Mueller may be proceeding with his the findings in his obstruction report for his part of the investigation. Doesn't mean the grand jury won't convene or subpoena Trump, but without actually speaking to Trump, and everybody's like, wow, he's going to move ahead without speaking to Trump. Trump gave an interview to Lester Holt where he said this whole Trump Russia thing. I say Russia because I think having an R on both ends makes it tougher sounding. Trump Russia thing is a fake story, and that's why I fired him. Thank you, Ginger, giving 666 for the Church of Hal being in session. Bless you. This idea that somehow that Trump is now tough on Russia to some degree, even in the news story that's coming out, it just reeks of wag the dog and Trump, and Russia has Trump by the tail. And again, like, we haven't even talked about Paul Ryan dropping out. Basically, right. Cementing Iron Stash's, position in that. And by the way, before we're all like, oh yeah, that's another win for the resistance, Paul Ryan is stepping down. He got these tax breaks through, which are temporary for normal people, but permanent for corporations. Tons of these Republicans are dropping out because they're going to get back into the private sector and take advantage of the loopholes they just built. So this idea that all of a sudden, like, they're, like, the only one that even has any sense of just that he's getting some sort of comeuppance, Trey Gowdy. What that guy has been saying about his tenure, Mr. Benghazi, pro-Trump, all this, like, I don't know what piece of intel he saw, but he's had the biggest turnaround. It's, it is amazing.
Without question.
What he's saying about this. So we'll be back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Woo. Man, this is... Diver Down came out today. I love scrolling through my Twitter feed and finding. Oh, geez. And we didn't even get into the fact that Keith Davidson, this guy, and waited a year to get pregnant, which is unheard of, and she started wearing shorts. Sorry, no mercy for the 11th hour. Come to Jesus. Trump apostates are building lifeboats to save themselves. Yeah, I agree, Driftglass. I just saying the only person I've ever... No pardon for Jared Fund. Amos, thank you so much. He's been able to keep his name out of the news a little bit lately. Yeah, I can't even talk about John Voight. He's just, well... John Voight is Ted Nugent but he can't play guitar. That's the idea. Trump himself may need a rubber raft in the room. Still have 40 minutes. It blazes by.
15 seconds.
Okay. See? Keep trading. Mm-hmm.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Okay, so Elliott Broidy is tied up in this whole Michael Cohen thing. RNC financier releases a statement. I think it was day before yesterday. Yesterday afternoon. He goes, this is his statement that he released. First, I would like to sincerely apologize to my wife and family for the hurt I have caused. I acknowledge I had a consensual relationship with a Playboy playmate, which he capitalizes, by the way. So,
all caps?
Yeah, no, just the first letter of each one, but still like in TM style, like it basically high-fiving himself in front of his bros with that sentence. He didn't say I had a consensual relationship with a woman, my junior, blah, 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 a Playboy playmate. At the end of our relationship, this woman shared with me that she was pregnant. She alone decided that she didn't want to continue with the pregnancy and offered to help her financially during this difficult period. So this harlot decides to abort our child, and I had no say in the matter because pro-life.
Wasn't me.
Yep. And so I just said I would pay for it and pay for her hospital bill. Okay. We have not spoken since that time. It is unfortunate that this personal matter between two consenting adults is the subject of a national discussion just because of Michael Cohen's involvement. It's not just because of Michael Cohen's involvement. Let's just be for the record. Considering that you're an RNC financier and that you paid for an abortion out of wedlock with your mistress, who was a Playboy playmate, while all of the candidates you're pushing were pushing family values and anti-abortion rhetoric. So there's more to it. There's more to unpack in this than that one tangential human being. But we go on. Mr. Cohen reached out to me after being contacted by this woman's. He keeps calling her this woman. This woman's like he just, I don't know who, this woman, I had who I paid for an abortion of, this woman. Keith Davidson.
Well, how did he get with her in the first place? He paid her.
Yeah, he was apparently they had a long-term financial arrangement is the story, right? Yeah. So anyways, and by the way, maybe they were attracted to each other. I'm not. That's not even my place to say, and I don't care. Ultimately, he turned out to be an awful person on other fronts. But the idea that it's the hypocrisy is the biggest part of it, because it's right. The amount of like stuff that we heard about Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and all this and whataboutism with Kennedy and his affairs and all this stuff, and then these people, you find out this stuff later. By the way, this isn't something he divulged. This came to light because he was dealing with an attorney who was raided by the feds for other illegal activities, one of which was colluding to help the Russians undermine the actual results of our election. So there we go. Okay. So anyways, he goes, being contacted by this woman's attorney, Keith Davidson. Although I had not previously hired Mr. Cohen, I retained Mr. Cohen, meaning hired him, after he informed me of his prior relationship with Mr. Davidson. I will have no further comment about this matter, and I request the media respect my family's privacy. Okay, but all of a sudden. Okay, so what's the weird part about this? Keith Davidson, who was the attorney for this playmate, Keith Davidson was Stormy Daniels' first attorney. Keith Davidson was the first. Yeah. Keith Davidson was the original attorney for the other playmate, and her name escapes me, that Trump. Let's see. Here it is. This obscure lawyer. This is from Think Progress. This obscure lawyer pops up in every Trump scandal. On Friday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney and self-styled fiction, negotiated a $1.6 million settlement to a Playboy playmate in exchange for her silence about an affair she had with a major Trump fundraiser, Elliott Broidy. Cohen had never represented Broidy. In a statement, Broidy said that he'd retained Cohen after he was contracted by the woman's attorney, Keith Davidson. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Davidson also represented two women who said they've had affairs with Trump, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Both Daniels and McDougal now suggest that Davidson, under the pretense of representing their interests, was actually working on behalf of Cohen and Trump. The three women have no known connection. The fact that Davidson represented them all could be a coincidence, or it could be evidence of a corrupt scheme to silence women. I like that part in and of itself. That they found, like, hey, dude, these women are kind of chatting with their friends. Do you want to go and negotiate a deal with them with the Inquirer or some other source so that you can get them some money and that somebody else will pay them to shut up? And if that doesn't work, then bring them to Cohen. Like, it's super obvious. And when you're talking about the vast amounts of money, let's say, you know, $130K is the going rate, exchange rate for keeping silent on a Trump affair, and Steve Bannon in Fire and Fury saying that there were hundreds that they had to deal with, then you have, again, you literally have Michael Cohen handing out the same NDA to multiple people. He literally, like, it's a rubber stamped arrangement. This goes to the actual argument, where Trump's saying, I didn't know anything about it, Well, he didn't know anything about it because he had plausible deniability, because he knew about the overall arrangement. So that's why the raid. So if Michael Cohen in his recordings, in anywhere, if Trump says, yeah, I don't want to hear about it, just handle it, on anything, that's a foreknowledge of relationship with Cohen involved in everything else that he does. Don't tell me what happened, just tell me when it happened, is essentially, I just need to know stuff is done. I don't need to know the details, so if anybody asks me, I can just say I don't know. And I can take a polygraph and say I don't know, because I don't know. But I know that you know, hey, I know that you know what I want. I know that you know that I know that you know what's going on here. But don't let anybody know that I know. So I don't want to know. That's why Comey's even saying this week, that it was like dealing with mob bosses in Jersey. Because, nobody who's been following the news for since Iran-Contra doesn't understand the concept of plausible deniability. And in the case of Trump and Cohen, it's obvious that they had, Cohen's like saying he would take a bullet for Trump, that he would rather take a leap off a roof. Like this, I mean, it at one point it was making me worried for the guy. I'm like, dude, you are lining up to be suicided. You kind of need to calm that rhetoric. So Daniel's lawyer, Michael Avenatti, said that he found the relationship between Cohen and Davidson to be disturbing. As more evidence comes to light relating his close relationship with Michael Cohen and his efforts to protect Mr. Cohen and Mr. Trump at the expense of his clients, we grow increasingly disturbed. Mr. Davidson has no business doing Mr. Cohen's bidding for him. McDougal has attacked Davidson's conduct more directly. She alleges in her lawsuit that Davidson was secretly conspiring with Trump representatives. She hired entertainment lawyer Keith Davidson, who assured her that the rights to publish her story were worth millions. Unknown to Ms. McDougal, Mr. Davidson was working closely with representatives of Mr. Trump while pretending to advocate on her behalf. McDougal alleges that Davidson made material misrepresentations to her in order to induce her to sign the contract. AMI and Mr. Davidson, AMI is the company that owns the Inquirer, failed to tell Ms. McDougal that the contract's fine print did not actually obligate AMI to run her columns, the central feature of AMI's promise to create ongoing positive exposure for Ms. McDougal. AMI and Mr. Davidson also failed to mention that they were secretly negotiating deals with other women to kill negative stories for Mr. Trump. And this is what this guy... let's consider this for a moment. This is the amount of conspiratorial behavior that Trump, his fixer Michael Cohen, this other lawyer who's alleging to work for the women he's at war with, the women who, are, that he's calling liars, who are trying to tell their story or getting paid to tell their stories and they're basically using the fact that they can get money to tell their story as a way to keep the story from being told. This level of conspiratory behavior by Donald Trump and Michael Cohen to just protect his hotel branding name, his real estate branding name, and his nonsense, kind of apprentice storyline to keep, and maybe, to protect him from any costly additions to his prenup with his wives, which is probably the biggest part of it. Probably the biggest financial interest he has in it is that they find out that he had an affair within this window that's in their prenup. Then they get more money and they can divorce him and get half of stuff and all kinds of things, right? So if he's willing to do that, and he has enough planning and skill, or the people around him know that that's the standard operating procedure, and then Michael Cohen goes to Prague, lies about going to Prague, is operating as this, this idea that, these people are my enemy, I wouldn't possibly work with them. And then the attorney that he's actually litigating against, was actually partnering with him to get money from the people that he's trying to kill these stories on, and possibly from Cohen and Trump for other things. I mean, we're surprised. We're surprised that they would do this to win an election or even get close, just to undermine Hillary Clinton. I mean, they had basically a lot of practice calling women liars and killers and frauds and all the stuff that they said against Hillary Clinton. Was just a slightly larger scale of how Donald Trump attacked women who he'd had affairs with or had accused him of sexual misconduct. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Let's see. Ginger, which means that she did expecting to gain something out of it, not very different to a prostitute to sleep with someone expecting to gain money. Yeah. I mean, I have issue with people, saying that, that Stormy was conditioned to behave that way, or saying that she had to do it, or, you got yourself into this situation. Because men have that feeling with women they're with as well. This is a human interaction thing. This isn't particularly branded towards women in that regard, and especially a woman with as much sexual agency as Stormy Daniels has. Is that the psych theme? And so, But if a woman is willing to sleep with a disgusting rich guy because of what she's going to get out of it, that makes her equally disgusting no matter what she looks like. Let's be real, garbage people attract garbage people. There's a strong argument for that these people deserve each other. I would love to, if I felt like I could trust all the other... Once we get all the other technology nailed down, then I can't even take calls. But I would totally do it. FYI, the FOSTA and SESTA bills that were signed into law have already negatively affected sex workers who consent to this work. Yeah, well, that's the idea. These are morality bills, unfortunately. These are the and I'm not, trafficking should be attacked as viciously as you possibly can. But they either aren't willing or aren't able to attack it source-wise the way they should be able to. So there you go. Boss has been described as the pimp requirement bill. Yeah, that's. I mean, again, this is when when you do stuff that this is a pushback against the concept of common sense. I'm not pushing back against common sense itself, but this idea that it seems simple, and then you realize the simple thing you just did have a huge ramification. It has a huge effect on a lot of the other stuff you weren't considering. Yeah, the fact that we glorify violence in the media but force people to cover their bodies is jacked up. Yeah, well, that's been said since Lenny Bruce. You can't show a naked breast on television unless a coroner's cutting into it.
And here is the mega worldwide radio program with Hal Sparks.
That's right. Don't forget to stick around for Dick K, who comes on after the show. Are we back or am I drunk?
We're so back.
Oh, good. All right, cool. I just things went in backward order. I heard Dick K's voice, and then I heard music after the fact.
You know what? Just because of that, I'm gonna have to call him out. We've got Eli on the board right now. Lady B had to go pick up her mom from somewhere.
Oh, okay. Is she okay? Is her mom okay?
Everything's fine. I apparently only her mom can help her when she has cake on her face.
Well, you know what? There is. I mean, if you talk about comfort moments in your life. One of the safest and best moments of your life is probably when your mom leaned over with a napkin and you had too much cake on your face and she wiped it with a napkin. Yeah. That's a pretty sweet moment in somebody's life. You know what I mean? Speaking of which, I got somebody sneaking up on me.
Again?
Yeah, totally.
You need better security.
I've only got a few minutes left, Cam. Give me a couple minutes and then we're going to the museum today. We're gonna go see King Tut. Cake. I said cake. That was the problem.
Who's got cake?
He's meditating on cake right now. Yeah, it's very good. But those moments in your life are pretty sweet. So I understand where it would make you want to rush back. Thank you, love you. Okay. So I don't even know where to go back and forth between these these conversations. But thanks, Eli, for jumping in on the board. I will say that.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at all the just in bringing all this stuff together, I want to make people understand that there's this argument that who would even do that? Well, okay, in most of these situations, most of us are so flabbergasted by stuff the Trump administration is doing or whatever. Or this idea that they're on a certain level so Machiavellian in their approach that we can get lulled into this idea of
You're not going to go down my Malkovich Road?
No, I'm not. I will not. I cannot. You effing moron.
I had no idea that John Malkovich would do whatever it took to get something else done. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's true. But the idea being is that if Trump is willing to do all this stuff just to keep from paying too much on his prenups and to arrange with his lawyer to have another lawyer pretend to advocate on the rights of women that he himself is litigating against, and he sends that very person to Prague to talk to Russian hackers, to criticize Hillary Clinton, and to coordinate a campaign to undermine her credibility during an election cycle where billions, if not trillions of dollars in the future are at stake. I don't understand how people are shocked. That this level of coordination can happen, even if it's not even him doing it at this point, right? This is the other thing, too, is that Trump's got a certain amount of his empire has been on autopilot since the mid-90s. There's all these stories that kept coming up of his kids coming in, Don Jr. and Eric specifically, but even Ivanka in a couple of instances, coming in and going, Dad, we've got this deal, and these people are going to give us money if we just do this. And he goes, just make it happen, do it. I don't need to hear about it. And then they would go off, create an LLC from scratch that he was a co-signer on that would further all these businesses. Look at the Panama mess that's happening right now, and understand that there are dozens of Panama situations happening, in that regard, all over the place, and it's hard for me not to go. I know you immediately went to Van Halen.
You pointing down the avenue.
That's right. Just
like
put the seat back.
Reach down
between my legs and ease the seat back. There, this is the MO of the Trump organization and has been for a very long time. So the idea that not only does Trump have that Trump had this fixer dealing with this, and then they raided his office, and we find out that he'd been fixing it for other Republican high-dollar officials, and that the lawyer that was operating on behalf of the people that he was quote-unquote fixing against has been a consistent fixture in all these things. And then after, and we find out, of course, after the raid, that Mueller now has information as of April 14th. They have evidence that Michael Cohen traveled to Prague in 2016 exactly when he said he didn't. They lied about it. He sent that tweet out. I've never been to Prague in my life.
Proven.
Which
he has apparently like an eyewitness alibi. Which
right. Here's a picture of my passport laying on a table made of fine mahogany.
I was with my son.
Yeah, right. The whole time. That if he's got this level of fixing going on, that in and of itself, just on his personal issues, why would it be shocking to anyone that there is a coordination going on between Trump and the Russian government, and that even what's going on in Syria becomes incredibly suspect right now? Because I on a personal level, I have a real hard time buying that there's no that the Russians are really mad and that there's no coordination between Trump and Russia, because we're ratcheting up language. When we bomb empty hangars and we decimate a chemical weapons facility that has actually been blown up before, in an area, outside of Damascus, that's already been struck by the Israelis, 2 months ago. So it reeks. It reeks like the last attack. It is just an exaggeration of the two. If the Brits and the French are coordinating with us, if the only reason we jumped in is because they were planning on hitting some sites, and we became the intelligence point, basically saying, okay, we know that we won't hit any Russian or Iranian troops if we hit these places, and there's no reason to believe that the Brits and the French wouldn't say, okay, those are good sites to hit. We don't want to do that. We don't want to ratchet it up by actually killing some Russians. Nobody really wants to tick off World War III in this, but we got to hit, Bashar al-Assad's ability to hit based on, chemical weapons. This is, we want to degrade his ability. We want to make sure that there aren't chemical weapons to, stockpiles or whatever. That old chestnut from the Iraq War. Which, by the way, the French and the English didn't want to get involved in, if you'll recall. We're very, remember freedom fries? But now they're, because of these internal, we can't have this, this Syrian madman using chemical weapons to kill his own people. He can control his own country. He can do what he wants. Just look at Myanmar. We don't have troops in there. We haven't bombed Myanmar, for what they're doing, largely because the people that they're systematically wiping out are Muslim. The Kuwaiti incubator test, which turned out to be baloney, doesn't turn out to be important in the in the Myanmar conflict. When they're, literally, there's these stories that are coming out in Myanmar that it's policy to kill infant newborns in these, like, it's brutal. But we're not hitting that area. So what is it about Syria? Well, this reeks of a PR campaign. And then you have Alex Jones largely buying it. I don't know if you saw, I tweeted it out earlier, but his pre-air, like, I'm not sacrificing my, my morals for effing Donald Trump.
What? Alex Jones said that?
Oh yeah, he flipped out. Like he just came off a 36-hour broadcast, and they're going to start a new 24-hour broadcast. By the way, this, just a money-making, we're going to need more funds, the deep state. And everybody, both him and Jimmy Dore and all these other people who suddenly somehow think that Donald Trump is an innocent victim in all this, that the deep state is making him do these things, that he wouldn't do these things, but for, but for Donald Trump. Yeah, calm down.
It much more sense when you finish that sentence.
Yeah, it actually does. If you just stop right there, that Donald Trump.
5. Is this name that tune?
Have you not seen this kind of running theme that they keep doing? I
did see that Tucker Carlson started covering like oversexed pandas during the Michael Cohen story break.
But then as soon as we're going into Syria, though, he starts doing this whole, the president is wrong for bombing Syria and all that. Yeah, well, it's a coordinated media campaign to look like it's artificial dissent. Just press play. It's not an out of, like, from a propaganda network standpoint, it's absolutely a conceivable thing. If everybody says all you do is toe the line,
back on those pandas,
then you do some false toe the line stuff about, things that won't matter in 48 hours. And then you can look back to, when he did something wrong, I criticized him. That whole story. Like that. Here's the thing. None of it is outside the realm of possibility. So, again, you don't have to say that this is what's going on, but you have to at least recognize that it's not out of the question that this kind of stuff can be coordinated or would be coordinated. I just, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory, but I also want to recognize that we're all too savvy at this point to take any of this stuff at face value.
We're all Russians now.
Are we? Is that how this worked out? Holy smokes, man.
Well, no, like how the Russians don't buy the propaganda BS that we do.
Yeah, but they also have their own version of the propaganda BS that they push. And again...
Yeah. What? No, come on.
It couldn't possibly be that our leaders are coordinating fake battles to make both sides look good to their constituency during, elections that where they had a thumb on the scale. Couldn't possibly be that. Couldn't possibly be that the scheme that Donald Trump used to make sure to silence women on making the lawyers on both sides pretend to fight so that they could make the people that they were trying to, the gullible people, take a lower amount of win so that they could run off, with a bigger win.
That's the worst.
That couldn't possibly be going on. I'm just saying the Prague Connection story with Michael Cohen makes this even more suspect, is what I'm saying. We got to take a break. I'm way over the break. It just happens. We get carried away. I'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio Program, Mega Worldwide. Now with 100% more Johnny Million, at JMillion on Twitter, at Hal Sparks. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube show. It helps us immensely. You don't have to get notifications or any of that stuff. Just give us that thumbs up. It really helps. We'll be back.
Set it and forget it.
That's right. Perfectly executed strike last night. Thank you to France and the United Kingdom for their wisdom and the power of their fine military. Could not have had a better result. Mission accomplished. You don't know the result yet. You don't know that it was perfectly executed. unless you know that there aren't any chemical weapons there and you coordinated the effect afterwards. With the Russians, and you let them know, and they didn't hit any of their troops, and you didn't hit any Iranian troops, and you hit some empty buildings, and you're okay with the empty buildings, and so we're all done. Like, that's the only way. Yeah, this is... Oh, you guys. Hold on. Back to the chats. Wow, the chat is just blazing right now. What happened? How do you no longer believe... Wait, back this up. That Alex Jones is a Barnum act? That he now actually believes his own BS? No, I think it's a... How we're all naked. Come on, man. Comey said that Trump had a red raccoon eyes. Comey is just bad or worse than Trump. He's not as bad or worse than Trump. He's just, I think a man with a big ego pushing back against him. David Parkman interview? You mean Pac-Man?
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. 30 seconds. Thank you. So I think we put it together fairly tightly this week. That this idea that
15 seconds.
Thank you. Closer over. Does he have cake on his face? Yeah.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
I would just play the full hour intro. I like it. I love it when we do that, actually. I worked very hard on that, so I'm very proud of it. Go to houseparks.tv and stream the show, which will take you right to the YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe us. It really, really helps out to like and subscribe to the channel. The Pentagon is saying, quote, the Syria strikes were, quote, successful. The heart of Assad's chemical program was struck, officials say. Warplanes and ships from the United States, Britain, and France launched more than 100 missiles at storage and research facilities near Damascus and Homs. What's up, Homs? Defense officials said. Russia called an emergency session of the UN Security Council where the U.S. warned it would strike again if Syria used chemical weapons. So we are now involved in Syria for the foreseeable future. We are now, and there's plenty of argument to be made about the value of making sure that Bashar al-Assad doesn't use chemical weapons on his people. And I am not one of these people who believes that there's no reason why he wouldn't do it or why he couldn't do it. And I also don't think he's the only one doing it. I don't know why. And by the way, I don't know why our chat room. Maybe that's the happy ending. Our chat room went completely naked for a while. Everybody in the chat room was claiming to be nude. I don't know how. I don't get to see them, so I'm taking their word for it. And judging by emoticons, I think largely. But there's no reason. I think at this point, pretty much people are like, whatever, who cares? Like, it's almost like the hippie response to post-World War II. Who cares? We almost died. We're in the Cold War. They could bomb us at any... We could all die any day. Like, so just, I think in the immortal words of Prince, slip on the purple banana until they put us in the truck, It's 2000 body over, oops, out of time.
Isn't that weird?
Mm-hmm. What, the
purple
lyric?
Banana thing? Yeah, I just noticed that like last week, and
you just noticed that last week? I used to joke about it in high
Yeah.
school to you.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing about 1999 is that he actually, I guess technically we got to have some sort of happy ending in this. Maybe just talking about Prince lyrics might just make us all a little bit saner. But yeah,
I think so.
In 1999, he says, Tonight we're gonna party like it's 1999. Slip on the purple banana until they put us in the truck. Let's go crazy. Those are Let's Go Crazy was all about that. It was like, let's just lose our minds. Who cares? We could all die any day. It was literally a Cold War response song. Sort of his happy party version of 99 Luftballons. Why be afraid if you can't stop it is the idea. By the way, in front of all this, Trump is tweeting about McCabe. McCabe is Comey. Comey is McCabe. Kaiser Soze is all around us. He's everyone. There was an idea where McCabe wasn't forthcoming with investigators. The Inspector General found that McCabe had lacked candor on 4 occasions when questioned by investigators and faulted his decision to authorize the disclosure of information to a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Basically, this is the report on McCabe, interestingly enough, is basically their complaints about whistleblowers in general, that McCabe was concerned about what was going on. He was fired in March after Attorney General Jeff Sessions rejected appeal that would have let him retire with full benefits. That essentially he was letting stuff out that he found was, I guess, dangerous and needed to be seen. He was basically acting as a whistleblower at one point. And on Friday afternoon, Trump called saying he lied, like in all caps. McCabe is and then he goes, McCabe is totally controlled by Comey. McCabe is Comey. No collusion, all made up by this den of thieves and lowlifes. And no, dude, these guys, this is the Republican issue of bias towards Trump. If you talk about all these people are biased towards Trump, notice how all the people who've seen all the evidence on Trump are suddenly the people who are biased. You know what I mean? That's one of the biggest things is these people clearly hate Trump. Peter Strzok, you can see he and his girlfriend were talking crap about Trump. Now, they were also talking crap. Strzok gets drug out in front of, Hannity loves to drag him out because he has a bias you can clearly see in his Trumps. Meanwhile, Strzok and his girlfriend were talking about Bernie and Hillary. They basically hated everybody. They were basically like Colin Powell's tweet, when Colin Powell's emails came out. Remember all that? When Powell was just crap talking everybody. Strzok and his girlfriend were basically doing the same thing, but what they focused on was, it's obviously Trump. They hate Trump. They can't stand Trump. They got a bias against Trump. It's amazing how biased people get against Trump once they get to look at the intelligence on Trump. Right. It's very telling how a lot of people who were fine with Trump or didn't really have an opinion on him, they start seeing this stuff. And again, that happens, the weirdest one is I guess, what's his name? And I just mentioned him a couple minutes ago. Now his name's the guy who looks like a B-level wizard, evil wizard in Harry Potter. But you've got all these retiring GOP reps, and I'm sure the chat room will tell me again really quick. Who am I talking about? The really creepy looking guy. No, not Gorka. Gorka's just always looked creepy. He hasn't turned on Trump at all. Nope, Ty Cobb, not the one. He just looks hilarious. It's the Republican guy who was all up in the Benghazi stuff. It's gonna but you guys will get it in a second. It's gonna drive me crazy. But the idea being that you're right. They're just Gowdy. Thank you, Kurt, for Congress 2018. Look at that, Trey Gowdy. All of them look crazy. There's so many of them. I type in retiring GOP rep Benghazi, and Trey Gowdy, is the guy who keeps. This guy comes out is suddenly having these comeuppance, these moments where he's realizing it, and I think it's because he says, "I don't like being a congressman. I don't have a lot to show for it." He saw the intelligence, and as soon as he was on the intelligence, and he saw 11 Benghazi hearings. He finally sees the Trump stuff. He's quitting and saying everything I did while I was a congressman was a waste of time. That's the reality of the modern Republican Party, and anybody who gets a good look at him. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks, Johnny Million. Thank you, Lady B. Thanks, Eli, for stepping in. We'll see you guys next week. Follow Johnny Million. Follow me on Twitter. Like and subscribe to the show. Don't forget, we'll see you next time. We'll have a little post show for about a short one today because I'm taking camp. Bye, Johnny Million. Thank you, Eli. Appreciate it, you guys. I'm signing off right now so that we don't get the music coming in. Bye-bye. So, what? Yeah. Let's see. So chat room, how you doing? Fiction accomplished. That's the show for today. Awesome. More cake. Thank you. It was a good show today. I'm gonna do a little. Let's see. I'm gonna do this. Let's see. The post show seems to. I don't know if the regular show gets up as well. Are you guys able to watch the regular show? Let's see. Let's start there. Yeah. So talking to the chat room, I want to start off the post show by saying thanks to Hal Vickery and Carter 360 and Natalie and Billy and Ath and Ginger and Amos for kicking into the super chat today. Bless you guys for doing that. Really helps a lot. Trey Gowdy's the most curious one of all because he's always been such a disgusting dude. And now, obviously, it's amazing. This is it's amazing the language this guy in particular is using. He literally said, "I haven't been good, I don't think, in Congress, and I don't enjoy it." There's none of the whole, well, I'm retiring. It's been a great honor to serve. He's like, no, this kind of sucked, and I was terrible, and I really didn't help. Trey Gowdy wants a judgeship. That's entirely possible. Maybe that's the balance argument. But still, to me, it's pretty bizarre. Yeah, and I agree, Carl. I just wonder how much they're willing to continue voting for him. You know what I mean? It's, I just find his language of everybody's particularly odd. You know what I mean? It's just peculiar. He's, yeah. Where's his whole, I'm going to find one of his, yeah. He hits Comey for, his book, for politicizing the FBI, and it's below the dignity of the office. That's fine or whatever. And the irony, whatever. That's, but his, that's why. Trey Gowdy. I misspelled it, so that's why it comes up. All of his language about it has been particularly telling. Leaving politics entirely. He's literally was the committee chairman. It's now granted. I always leave open the option that these guys maybe Gowdy has a quantum entanglement with an ethical parallel. Yeah, and they swapped spaces. I feel so bad for that parallel universe. No one actually enjoys being in the voting chambers. It's the price we pay to actually get things done. Yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of understand the balance of it and vote for what you feel most of the time. Playboy Playmate, just wait. Oy. Maybe Gowdy was visited by ghosts of Christmas past. He looks like one of the ghosts of Christmas past. It's weird. Didn't we give the task of removing Assad's chemical weapons to Russians in 2015? Too, if the bum in the White House really cared, why did he ban refugees as first order of business? Well, exactly right. Dude, Kirk for Congress, like that. One of the constant weird parts is this. He did this last week with the people coming, supposedly the South American caravan that was coming this way. Remember the whole conversation about the South American caravan? And all of a sudden, he's like, 80% of the women in this caravan have been raped, but don't let any of them in. And as a matter of fact, don't let any of them in. And I'm sending National Guard to make sure that none of them even sneak across the border. That in and of itself is, I always have to keep checking to see if Cam's sneaking up on me. The skin on Trey Gowdy's head is very tight. Yeah, and very thin. It is peculiar. In 1999, Newt Gingrich was a disgraced monster driven from power, radioactive dead man. By 2009, he was the most frequent guest on Meet the Press. Yeah, and this week they've been rolling him out to talk about the politics of the strikes in Syria as well. Like it's that part of it's just goofy. We could do a whole show on Newt Gingrich, and I'd rather not. Cam's getting his gear together. He's doing his own show in the other room. So what about, how about Boner transitioning from being to being a marijuana lobbyist? That's not surprising at all. Both Ohio Valley and Kentucky could be helped immensely by the legalization of hemp and pot, period. Especially hemp. So I'm not surprised at all as they look at economically what would benefit the farmers in those areas. Just being able to grow hemp in and of itself, all the uses it has, and how much less damaging it is for the environment than tobacco or corn, even. But the irony that that for years these guys considered pot a class 1 narcotic, a class A narcotic like heroin. Just the hypocrisy that that jailed people forever and ended lives, and now they're like, maybe there's something to this now that I can make coin. I was so disappointed. Only 5 out of the 104 in the state finals were girls. The state finals for what, Denise? I missed that part. I couldn't see the beginning. Someone told Boehner that his constant drinking would kill his liver, so he tried weed out of desperation. You're not wrong, Evernum. That absolutely could have been the gateway. Yeah, Ginger, you're absolutely right. Like, hemp in and of itself could transform Appalachia. No question. And the residual stuff from when if you can use every part of hemp, but even the retooling of the roots, it just doesn't sap as much stuff from the ground. The vitamins and stuff you need for it. It makes a great rotation crop. It's it's very resilient. You can grow it on hillsides, and still harvest it. There's tons of options for doing this. My son won third place in the Texas State National Geographic Bee last weekend. Oh, that's great. That's congratulations. Yeah. Hemp is a much better fuel than gasoline. 2 growing seasons a year. Yeah. If anything, marijuana farms would make Appalachia happy. Yeah. Well, it also solves a lot of the opioid issues that they have as well. Because when in states that have legalized pot, opioid prescription problems have gone down. So My mom has always been anti-drugs, but now she's calling for legalization of pot nationwide. Yeah. Hemp makes a very soft lotion. Indeed, it does. Carter 360, well pointed. Then I used it for medicine, and I become a devotee. Like the use of CBD oil, it makes a lot of sense. I don't like. You guys know me. I don't use any mind-altering drugs because I like how my mind works on its own. But all the ancillary products that are available because of pot and hemp that don't change your thought process, I'm for 100%. Why can't we have hemp factories here in California? Exactly, Susie Q. We should. The most alarmed scientists interested in climate change claim a livable human environment on Earth. Not sure how I feel about that. Almost done. I'll be there in a minute. I used to be very anti-drug, but I've seen the science on cannabis and it should be legal. I agree. Prohibiting drugs is clearly not working and really bad for people getting rich. We regulate and tax. I think there's limits on that. I don't believe that heroin and certain drugs should be readily available like that. I think they're dangerous and damaging. There's no balanced use of it. But I don't think you should criminalize it. It's where you should be legalizing of pot on the same level and even there should be arguably some protective elements on things like ecstasy and those things which were started out as psychoreactive drugs. Give us back our pot and we'll forget about the crack. That's Sam Kinison, right? Using marijuana just for its benefits and alleviating nausea from chemotherapy in and of itself is worth it. I agree. How wasn't pot banned for racist reasons? Racist reasons to ban it. It wasn't banned for racist reasons. They used that as the reason to get rid of hemp, essentially, because the idea that the newspapers were made out of Hearthstone paper mills, didn't want to make newspapers out of hemp, and so he used that as a way to scare your average white 50s person into into thinking that brown people high on drugs were going to rape them. Yeah. Yeah, decriminalization versus legalization for very similar to sex work. There's a difference between decriminalization and legalization. Right. Originally banned to protect the paper industry. Yeah, every now and then I can see it. I mean, it does sound doomsday-ish, but the evidence for climate change, in my opinion, just absolutely credible. Yeah. Have a great day, Hal and family. Bye, everyone. Chat. Thank you so much. Sounds like Cam is making dinner. Yeah, no, he's finally eating his eggs, I hope, because we made him raid the fridge, perhaps. Yeah, the Rockford, or it could be my mom making something, too. So, that big CU smoking out scare me to death. Just listen to Minnie the Moocher. Holy smokes. I would like to do an ongoing blog about it, but the job I have is anti-drug and can't lose my job or lose my benefits because that's the reality we live in. Well, you don't have to do... You could, call it Secret Stash and, create a fake blog account and do it under that. Most things that, would revolutionize the world are being held back by the fear of losing income instead of realizing the massive incomes that would come from shifting to modern renewable technologies. I mean, you can't stop lying. You could literally argue that is exactly why Trump is so pro-fossil fuel and coal. That is exactly it. When do I go to China? I think I go on the 28th. I don't know for sure. I'm still waiting for the details, but I just got my visa. So, no, I leave in a couple weeks, I think. Yeah. Yeah, in 2 weeks, apparently. Still go for May in Chicago. Yep. Yeah, Charles. Yeah, have a nom de plume. For another Congressional town hall on California 45th. That's great. Don't fly via Syria. Yeah, I won't. Yeah, I tweet under a fake name so I don't out myself as a journalist there. Need that outlet. Yeah. I'm gonna miss Hal and all of you. Yeah, it'll only be a couple weeks, I promise. And I'll be back. I'll see who can, I'm going to make Johnny Million fill in on at least one of them. I want to, see how that goes. Am I doing any more? After a hiatus, we are starting up with our 50th, and we're going to probably video the podcast with Frank, and that we're going to the we're going to the museum with Frank and his son Frankie right after the show today. So we're meeting them at noon our time. So, So I'm hopefully I would love to get Big Dick Hunter to take over, for Richard Hunter to do it. In the world doesn't end next week. I'll see you later. Yeah, thanks, Brad. Yeah, so I'm gonna sign off, you guys, so I can get with the kid and my mom and go to the museum and all that kind of stuff. We're having a family day. So and Superior Podcast will be videoed from, I think, going forward once we start. So we're gonna start up again this week, and then we'll preload some of them before I go away too. The last time Johnny filled in was the Saturday after Trump was elected. Yeah, it was a good warning. Yeah, so really appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you again to everybody in the Super Chat. You guys are awesome. It's always great to have you guys here, and especially a pleasure to do the post show. So thank you guys a ton. Let's see. Upload this one. And there's our post show. So, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Yeah. Hugs, everybody.